Welcome to Extremely Live. I am Micah Rock and Roll, and today I am interviewing Tony McMillen about his new comic book, Attaboy. Super cool. I encourage everybody to check it out. Looks like it's available everywhere. I was able to find it in all kinds of places. But Tony, thank you for doing the show. Welcome.
Are you kidding me? Thanks for having me. It's going to be a blast. Absolutely.
So, I like to kind of get to know a person a little bit. You and I, we met at indie. Oh my God!
The cool kids are saying IC3.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to abbreviate everything.
Indie Comics Creator Con. I think I got it. Very, very briefly, but I was immediately like drawn to your artwork. You have a very hyper specific kind of art style that I was super into. And then I think you were selling Attaboy there at a time, like maybe a self-published version, which is very cool to me.
Exactly. And it's almost the same book. There's a different cover, and I think we added 7 commas, maybe like we moved some word balloons. It's so minimal, and I like freaked out about every little change, and it was like grammar. But I was like, oh God, I can't sell out, but it was fun.
That's great. But yeah, other than that, we don't really know each other, so I just want to start by asking, like, where'd you grow up? What was the vibe around where you were from?
Yeah, so I grew up a few different places, but I was born in Ohio, but actually I grew up mostly from like age 10 to 30 in Arizona, Tucson, Arizona.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's a pretty whoa place. It's pretty crazy. I like Tucson, but now I'm living in Massachusetts, but Tucson is kind of what I think of as home.
Yeah.
Kind of a desert rat kid, but have you ever been to Arizona?
I've been like once, and I remember like being just feeling like I could get a sunburn just like walking across the street. Like it was so brutal.
Oh yeah, that's very true. And I never tan. Like I'm like a little bit Italian, and I can't tan. My sister can tan. My 20 years in Arizona was this going from any shaded area to another shaded area, and like this is like in the 90s. I had long hair, and I wear like flannels for no reason. It was like 98 degrees. It was so insane, like what I put myself through. And like me and my wife will talk about how our first cars, our AC didn't work. It's like, yeah, you just put towels on everything, and you jump in, and you're just gonna sweat, 10 pounds off. But that's just how you're 22. Who cares?
Right.
I have no idea how I did it, but that being said, Tucson, Arizona is a beautiful place, and if anyone wants to go there, they should visit it. It has some great Mexican food. Go walk around. It's also a good place to make comics in a way because you want to be indoors sometimes. You just want to stay inside the house if there's AC cranking and do stuff. So it's almost like you listen to like the Seattle grunge guys, and they're like, "Is this rain so much? There's nothing to do. You have to stay inside. You might as well get a guitar, start a band because you're gonna be stuck somewhere." So
yeah,
I think there's some similarities there.
Yeah, totally. I completely relate to that. Like I was like homeschooled, so like I was at home all the time, 24 hours a day. We had like friends we hung out with or whatever, but I was like stuck in my house all the time. So it's like escaping that by just drawing worlds and getting into like these these little imaginative places in my head was definitely a direct result of that. So that makes complete sense.
Yeah, totally. I think there's probably a lot of creators who have something that causes them to want to do something like that.
Yeah. So was that you? Were you holed up in your room drawing? I'm guessing playing video games too.
Oh, there's definitely some game action, but it's funny. I was inside, but also I was never a sports kid, but I loved to walk around. I thought of a lot of cool ideas when I was walking around, and in fact, I was like sort of like a low key like folk character in my neighborhood. There's this kid who walks around and talks to himself, and he's doing like jump kicks and stuff. And that was me, and like I lived in an apartment complex. I remember I was like maybe 12, and there's this guy who took pity on me, and he told my mom's like, "Hey, I see Tony by himself a lot. I got these tickets to a little league game. Maybe he wants to come like watch." Or it was little league. It was like a college baseball game. Anyways, he took me, and I eventually realized, oh, he feels bad about me. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy a bunch of hot dogs and I'm just gonna pump this dude for as much stuff as I can. Because I actually kind of dug being alone. I had friends. I actually had friends come to my house sometimes, and I'd be, no, I'm busy making up a movie in my head, and they look at me like, what we want to like hang out with you like in real life. And I was like, no, it's pretty important. I gotta figure out this fake movie in my head that's never gonna amount to anything. And look at me now.
Yeah, this is. I remember. It's so embarrassing. I remember, like pre-college, I'd working like a part-time job, and I was imagining like same deal, like imagining like a very hyper detailed like a sci-fi setting in my head. And I was walking down a hall, and he turned a corner, and he had a look of like, ugh, in his face, and I realized it was because he was hearing me mimic the sound effects out loud, like and he's like this basically an adult is like playing pretend here. This is insane.
That's beautiful. I want to witness it. I've never been on the other side of it. I want to see a kid just going nuts now. I'd probably be terrified.
Yeah,
but that's the dream.
It has to look like a mental illness of some kind.
Yeah, and I was a weird looking kid to begin with. I don't know, but it brought me here. But that's the kind of stuff I treasure, like
Yeah.
And I'm still like I love going to cons and meeting people, but I do need some time alone afterwards to kind of like recharge my batteries. I've always been that kind of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely understand that. Solitude is a good tool for sure.
Yeah, and if you're gonna be a comic book creator, I mean,
There's
hopefully you
plenty.
kind of dig a little solitude, yeah, because you're gonna get a lot of it.
Yeah. So let's talk specifically comics. When did you were you always thinking you wanted to do comics? Did you start discover comics and then yeah, just walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, I think I always liked to draw, even
Mhm.
before I knew what comics were. I always just liked drawing. I think I went through a lot of phases. A lot of kids, I went through a dinosaur phase and like a Greek mythology phase, and then like just a general science fiction-y phase. But basically, I think I was like 8 or so. I started getting into like Batman and Spider-Man and some of the X-Men stuff. And then when I was 9, the Batman 1989 Tim Burton movie happened, and Batman was inescapable. It's like it's hard to oversell this. It was just like everyone had a Batman shirt. Everywhere you went,
Mm.
there's Batman merchandise. The movie was huge, and I saw it, and it really it knocked me out. And then basically, since the movie was everywhere, they were putting the Dark Knight Returns trade paperback in bookstores. And I was with my aunt for the summer,
Oh.
and she's like, "Oh, this is like a legit book. This is like a graphic novel. This is like okay to get you." And she bought me this when I was 9 years old, and I was like, "Oh man, his butt cheeks got swastikas. This is gnarly. I have no idea what's." And I was really like perplexed by it, but I liked it, and that was like this that cemented me. I'm like, "Oh, I really like comic books," and I started
Yeah.
drawing comic book stuff, and that's kind of been it. And the weird thing is, besides comics, I've written and published prose novels. I've been in bands. We didn't our band we played around, but we didn't get big or anything. I've done other things, and I was always like intimidated by comics because I thought I had a certain
Mm.
degree of taste, and I couldn't even meet my own tastes.
Yep.
I was like, this is not good enough, and so I was always like, I'm not going to draw comics. And eventually, I was like, I want to try it. And once I did it, I realized th this is what I should have been doing. Like those other things I still love. I still write music and write prose, but comics is a much more natural fit. And I think and I saw you nodding, and I think everyone has that where you develop taste and you go, oh, this is good, this is bad, and you're not there yet, and so that
Yeah.
keeps you from trying. I think so many people, it's hard to get past that bubble, that burden. But once you do, I mean, it's great. And like you realize, I think most people realize it's okay. You're never gonna reach what you aspire to, but that's the whole thing. You just keep trying.
Exactly. Dude, you nailed it. Like uh the comic I was showing at that show was the first thing I had like seriously printed, like invested money into have made because it just was so long. It's like this isn't good enough to like put in print and ask money to people to give me money, like it was just
Right.
always like I'll never be as because there's just so many amazing creators out there. It's like you're never going to be in any of that, in that league. But it was the dumbest thing to never do it because the second I sat down and got serious, is like I'm going to actually do this. It was so satisfying, so much fun,
Right.
and like you can immediately like pinpoint what you need to get better at so that you can like work on it. Like I just learned so much from doing that. I wish I had done it decades ago.
Exactly, and it, I guess it's a lesson you have to learn the hard way, no matter
Yeah.
what. Like, and like you said, finishing any project, your growth is going to be so exponential compared to if you never finish a project and you just keep on trying to fine tune things. You just gotta
Yeah.
get it out there and see what's up. And like, yeah, I am really happy, and I guess it worked out. Me waiting a while. On the flip side, I gained life experience. I have something to write about, something to
Yeah.
talk about. But yeah, man, it would have been awesome to kind of have like, well, I'm 42 now. It would be like, yeah, I have like 20 years of comics I've made. Like this
It's
is my huge catalog.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm turning 40 next year. It's like very similar. Just like, man, I had the skills I have now 10 years ago. Like I really should have just gone for it, and I don't know why I
Right.
didn't. But whatever. We're here now, and
Yeah.
whatever. So that's great. Sounds like you were involved in all kinds of in creative stuff and endeavors. I also dabbled in. My brother was in a band. I like to play drums. I played with him for a
Oh,
little
nice.
bit. Like, I also was like kind of experimenting with where I would fall, like in a creatively, and what I wanted to spend my time doing. Um, and yeah, like same, just came to like discovered comics early. Didn't make anything, but always wanted to, like that kind of a deal.
Right.
But let's get back to you. Sorry, I'm getting distracted here.
That's
So
fine.
your Attaboy is the first thing I've read of yours. I've like looked at a bunch of your art online, but like this is the first comic I've read. Um, I'm I want to talk about your art style.
Sure.
It's very interesting to me. It looks awesome. But as I was reading Attaboy, specifically when I was looking at the Mechazoid designs, which are like uh, real quick, Attaboy is a comic about a video game you're convinced is real, like that you had played as a kid, and it's kind of like starts as almost like the instruction manual, and then evolves into a story kind of a deal. And it's very heavily inspired by Mega Man, and
Oh
I
yeah.
wonder a little bit if Metroid entered into it because the
Oh yeah.
designs there's like Metroidy designs in there. I've noticed.
Yeah, I'm a huge Metroid guy, and like
Yeah, that's
that
great,
is Metroid. When I was a kid, I was like, oh, this is like an alien movie, but like for a Nintendo, this is up my
dude.
alley totally.
That the first time I saw Super Metroid, like my brain was like, "This is real life. It looks so real." Like it was just, and
That's
the
great.
music of that game is incredible. Oh man.
Yeah.
But yeah, looking at your designs, specifically your art style, I was like, "Is this dude like inspired by Native American art? Like those
Oh.
like what I'm talking about, like the whales and the birds, like that very kind of
Yeah,
designy
yeah,
look."
yeah. It's kind of everything's got sharp edges. I wasn't consciously, but I do enjoy a lot of that artwork I've seen. I think a lot of
As
it's
soon as
incredible
you
and
said
beautiful.
Arizona, I'm like, I wonder if he was
Oh, right.
influenced like by that kind of Western
It could have gotten in there, but I wasn't actually thinking of that. But yeah,
actively.
yeah,
That's
yeah. That's
interesting.
kind of cool. I haven't heard
Yeah.
that before. That's kind of neat.
Yeah, it really reminded me of that. Like I was like, what is this reminding me of over and over? And I finally started Googling, and it's like, I forget what it's called, like Pacific Western Native American art or something like that. Like those Mechazoids, you could stack them on top of each other, and it could be like a totem pole, like the characters
Wow,
and stuff.
that sounds
It,
awesome. First off,
yeah,
yeah,
I mean, it would be
yeah,
like an
cool.
awesome like thing to have on your desk, actually, like
Right.
a physical toy. But yeah, like your style's like super heavy, kind of characters built out of like repeating patterns and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How the hell did you land on a style that specific? Me as a person who's never like actively developed a style, like I kind of I pull things from people. Obviously, everybody does, but like
Right.
I change up my style depending on what I'm drawing or the story I'm telling. You have this hyper specific, unique style. I just kind of want to talk about that. How'd you get there?
Yeah. Well, thanks, first off, but it's funny. It kind of goes back to not having enough confidence to make my own comic. Part of what gave me a little more confidence was I basically was maybe almost 10 years ago. I found this pen called the Pilot Parallel pen. It's a chisel tip, so it's got kind of a flat edge. And I started playing with that. I really liked it. It felt like a really good fit for me. And I started messing with that, and then I discovered this great artist named Jeffrey Allen Love. Jeffrey Allen Love, he's done comic books and he's done fantasy books and just illustrations. And his book, which I got, his first book is called Notes from the Shadowed City. Beautiful art. And what he does is a lot of his art is sort of silhouettes that he'll do in ink and he'll run a brayer over it with white acrylic paint, and it causes these really textured, beautiful figures. And for like maybe 2.5 or 3 months, I became a Jeffrey Allen Love clone. So he did a video. Yeah, it was bad. I basically he did a video how he does this thing, and I was like, oh, I can do something like this.
Yeah.
And then and I was like way in. I was like, oh man, it'd be cool. Like he does this thing, and I'm like, kind of a knockoff. But and eventually, like 3 months in, I was like, wait, that's all I'll ever be. I'll just be a knockoff. I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
I'll be the second best Jeffrey Allen Love, which is nothing, right? And it hit me. It was like an epiphany. I was like, of course, I can't do that. And
Uh,
so then
how old were you,
I
real quick? I'm sorry.
so I
Like, I'm
that was
like,
like 10 years ago. So I'm 32 or 31 or
okay,
32.
okay. Go, keep going.
Yeah, and so then like I just like okay, and so I pushed that right out of my system as much as I could. I try to retain the good things, like his sense of composition, and these things which are not the overt thing. But I was like, I can't just do his style. And then I started doing this thing where whenever I draw, and I like everyone else, I have a million influences. But if I'm drawing something and I see something that's weird that I don't can't quite figure out how I did that or where that's coming from, I try to pursue that, and eventually that
Ah,
mutates, and eventually it mutates enough that it becomes its own funky thing.
yeah.
And I realized like all my favorite artists are very distinct. And even like you talked about drums, I love Keith Moon, and Keith Moon says this
Mm.
quote. He's like, "I'm the world's best Keith Moon style drummer," and and I was like, okay, that's great. Even if you're not technically that skilled, you can be you, and that's no one can beat you. And I realized the confidence came. I was like, well, I'm doing a really weird thing here, and the chances are someone could say, there's faults in this, but they're also like, I can't exactly rate you at the same thing because I don't know what you're doing. And I was
Yeah.
like, yes, exactly. So I was like, I gained some confidence from that, and the style's kind of developed since then. It keeps on getting stranger and weirder, and I kind of like that. And but that was the thing. And it's funny, Jeffrey Allen Love. I got to meet him. He's a super nice guy, and I told him that story, and he was like, "Cool," and he didn't care. He's like, "Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you pushed past it. Basically, like that's great." And like it's I think it happens to a lot of people, and like it's totally cool to have a style which is very indebted to people. And my style still has, I could say there's four great grandfathers, and I could pick out who they are, and I think people go, oh yeah, that makes sense. But the more influences you have, and the more you throw in that stew and that gumbo, the harder it is to pick it apart, and then it
Yeah.
really does start brewing into its own weird thing. And so I think I'm at that point where I gain new influences all the time, and I throw them in there. And the other thing I think about a lot is, you ever watch The Simpsons?
Hmm.
Okay, so Hank Azaria was talking about all the voices he does on The Simpsons, and he goes, "Well, the thing is, like when I'm doing Mo, that was supposed to be my Pacino voice. When I did Lou the Cop, that's supposed to be my Stallone. I'm a really bad parrot." And I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "That's right." And I was like, and he's like, "So it becomes its own thing." I'm like, "Yeah, that's
Totally.
me. I'm actually really bad at this." Like when I try to do John Romita Jr. or Frank Miller, it kind of comes out wonky, and eventually the wonk is all everyone sees, and they're like, "Oh man, it's awesome." I'm like, "Yeah, that's my intention." It's like just like that. And
That's
so
great.
I've embraced that, and I think that's especially when you're starting out. I think it's really smart to embrace your limitations in a way and try to like Kurt Cobain was like, I can write these really catchy songs. Maybe I'm not the world's technically best singer, but I can sing with heart, and I know and make a good melody. So he's not going to try to write some like 4 octave Freddie Mercury crazy thing. He's like, I can
Right.
sing within this thing, and I can play like my voice cracks a lot. Well, what if I just lean into that? Like, so I'm
Hmm.
doing this intentionally. So now it's not like, oh, he fucked up that note. It's like, no, that sounds cool. He's breaking up all over the place.
Right.
And I think that, yeah, I think about that a lot, like with when I draw and write and stuff.
Yeah, that's great. Like, I, for whatever reason, anytime I start doing something, I like to try and get other people to like get excited and do it themselves too. And I know all these comedy people in New York City. I'm like, you all have like an awesome comic book in you, and you know what I mean. Like everybody can like make
Yeah.
something really cool, and people are always like, oh, I can't draw, I can't draw. But it's like, that doesn't even matter. Like, there's so many, like, even like like meme, like web comic type deals where it's like, I'm like, that's really funny. I liked reading that, and it's drawn like shit, but like, it doesn't matter.
Oh, 100%. And half the time, those people have some of the better storytelling because they're not relying on these beautiful illustrators. No, no, no.
Right.
This panel and this panel really work together. It's a
Yeah.
joke or it's just effective storytelling because it's like they have nothing else to rely on.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah. If you are listening to this and feeling bad about your art and not making something because of it, you just have to push past that, because it's like, it's just nothing good comes of that headspace. It's only once you get over that fear and make something that you can actually at least get in the direction of getting better, and where you how you picture yourself.
Dude, totally so glad you said that. That's how I feel too. And I really do. If someone is listening, like, trust me, you're gonna feel better when you finish a product or project, and you're gonna get better, and you're gonna be less precious because it's not gonna
Yeah,
be your only idea. It's like, well, I did this one. That's the next thing. There's no way it can't help you in some way.
totally.
And yeah, and also like art. I know it's such a cliche. It is subjective.
Yeah.
You might not like what you're doing, but someone else might think it's the best thing they've ever seen, and that's
Yeah,
that's really true.
it is. Um, Speaking of your art, I as I was reading it, I'm like, this feels so like, it feels very psychedelic to me, and specifically, it's not like mushroom organic psychedelic. It's like hard razor edge, like acid psychedelic. You know what I'm saying? Like
I do.
like
It's just funny
what
to
is it,
break it down to
sine
that
wave
level.
or whatever, where it's like it's just so sharp.
Yeah, I mean, I've dabbled. Maybe it's in there. Yeah, that's actually really funny because, yeah, I guess I could see that. Yeah. Um, Tucson, Arizona's a place, man. Tucson, Arizona, we have nothing to do. You're gonna have to dabble and try
Yeah.
and
Oh
figure things
yeah. Oh
out.
yeah.
But what's funny, I actually what I love was when you see psychedelic art that is it's organic in the meaning that like it's just nature. Nature's kind of psychedelic in its own way.
Yeah.
And I mean, like you look at like a forest or a field of certain plants, it's kind of weird. It's kind of
Yes.
these patterns that develop, and that's the like that really kind of gets the heaviest stuff because sometimes it's cool to see like intentionally psychedelic art, but it's like someone's like I want you to like I want to blow your mind. They're really
Yeah.
pushing at you, and that's cool. But like when something just is trippy,
Yeah.
that's really really cool and freaky to me.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely did not feel forced. It was just like, yeah, the way I was taking it in, just like the colors and the composition and like just like the patterns everywhere. Yeah, it was. It just had a very psychedelic experience to me. I also want to compliment you. You have like half a dozen two-page spreads in this Attaboy comic that are so badass. Like you could pull them out,
Oh,
put them on a
nice.
wall as a poster. That just looks so cool. And you did a
Thank you.
bunch of them. Like I did one two-page spread in my comic, and it was like the most nerve-wracking thing to like get it figured out at the printers and like just the whole thing. But man, you did a bunch, and they all look super cool.
Thank you. Part of that was actually the first edition of Attaboy is oversized. It's treasury size. It's humongous.
Oh,
It's giant. So I did that. So I knew the book was be big. So I was like, oh, let's do
yeah,
like some huge double page spreads. And I'm a big Jack Kirby guy, and I love
yeah,
his 2-page spreads. And so that was one of the initial ideas. I was like, well, it's gonna be big. It'll be really huge if I do 2 pages.
yeah,
And it looks cool in any size. And like I love drawing 2 pages. And the first book I did was called Lumen. I did it with the same printer. And once I knew it could work, because I was
right,
scared too. I was like, once I saw that, I was like, okay, this can work. I was like, let's do this a lot. And like, I feel like almost every issue of any book I've done, there's almost always one 2-pager. There's been a couple exceptions with a few one issues, but I love doing it.
yeah. It's so fun when you like flip the page. It's like boom, like this
Yeah.
huge, just awesome image that just engulfs your peripheral vision and everything. It's just like just huge and awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I really also wanted to compliment you. So like I was saying, for the listeners, it's like it starts as like, oh, this is a game I remember. Nobody seems to remember it. I need to document my memories of this game to just kind of get it out of my system. And it starts, and it's like, oh, this is like reading a manual. Like the first part of the manual is like the story of the game, and then like how to do the moves, and like it plays like that. But the more and more you read, the more the narrator of the story kind of like starts dropping these breadcrumbs of like maybe more serious life things happening to him that are you realize like he's kind of working through, or she is working through something in this retelling of this supposed video game, and it just gets way deeper than you think it's going to. And I just wanted to compliment you on being able to achieve that, and B, like it's something I relate to, of like being a little kid and maybe you're not in a totally ideal situation, and like so you're sinking into these like comic books or games kind of like as an escape, and it rang true. It felt kind of real to me.
Thank you very much for saying all that. And I think there's a lot of people who relate to that thing. I mean, that's all very much my experience. I didn't make that kind of feeling up. That's how I felt. And it's weird. Like I had this idea basically for a few years I had an idea of doing a comic book that was disguised as a video game manual. I was like, that'd be cool, but I didn't really have a story.
Yeah.
And then the first thing I got to, I started drawing this Attaboy character. I was like, oh, he's cool. He's like a Mega Man. He's like an Astro Boy. That's cool. And then I was like, oh, that could be my video game manual character. That'd be cool. But it was like it still wasn't like enough to compel me to make the comic book. And then I became a dad.
Oh.
And all of a sudden, yeah, all these feelings I kind of had. I thought I was kind of done thinking and dwelling on feelings about my own folks start really bubbling to the surface. And then I was like, oh, this comic book disguised as a video game manual could be a really interesting way to kind of sneak in some personal stuff and also still like have the entertainment value and allegorical stuff that I like, but not make an autobio comic per se, but to have enough of heart to give it some more substance. And I was like,
Yeah.
this could work. And it was a little dicey because I knew like dicey in a really small sense. But basically Attaboy is my third comic. I did a book called Lumen and then a book called Serious Creatures. And I had been talking, I have a small cult audience, especially at that point. But I've been talking to folks about like Attaboy, the idea of a video game manual book, and they're like, that sounds great. And I even said like as a tagline, it's like David Lynch's Mega Man. And then, yeah, but that was before I thought of like the real like family angle and the fatherhood angle. And then I was like, oh, I think people are expecting something. This might be different. But I was like, I guess I gotta do the book I want to do.
Yeah.
And again, this is like my small audience. It might be like, 100 people who might be like, this sucks. We wanted something different. But I was like, whatever. And so when it came out, though, people really liked it. And I was glad because I was like, it's a weird. I think it works, but it's a weird story. It's a weird way of delivering the story.
Totally. And no, it really does work. Like the timing of it is like perfect, I think. Like you really get sucked in and thinking this is just going to be like a surface level like fun comic book homage, and then you start getting this more serious kind of subject matter that ties in with the story of the comic. It's very good. You did a good job.
Thank you. I feel like it's like when you're having a great time at a party with somebody, you just meet them and you're hitting it off. Everything's cool. They can't like in hour one drop like, hey man, my life sucks. Here's what happened in my childhood. You can't do that.
No.
But if you have a great night and at the end they give you a little hint and you're like in the right mindset, you can go, okay, what's up?
Yeah.
Maybe next time we'll get a little deeper. And then you got to let it. You can't just go there right off the bat. You got to kind of build up to that.
Right. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I have some more stuff written down here. What do I want to get? I really enjoy video games. I do a podcast with some friends about gaming, and always grew up seriously, like split my time evenly between playing video games and just like doodling, basically.
Right,
Um,
right.
and I feel like there should be a more of a crossover with video games and comic books. Like, it feels, like there's like the Sonic the Hedgehog comic book that's actually pretty popular. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, and there's like the the Pokemon has like a manga that was really fun and stuff like that. But there's this huge scene of just like indie comics creators. There's this huge scene of indie video game creators, and it blows my mind that there's not like more crossover of like you work on the comic to like help promote my video game, and like we can all kind of work together. I think there
That's
should be
really
more
smart,
of
man.
that.
Yeah, because like a few years ago, Hyperlight Drifter really knocked my socks off. Like this is awesome, and
Yeah,
that was a smaller operation, and that was really a personal project from that guy. And like I would
totally,
that yeah, I was like I would love to draw like a little like
dude.
tie into that or something, you know?
I got addicted to this farming game, Stardew Valley. It's made by one dude, and I was like, man, I want to make a Stardew Valley comic, and I like emailed the guy, and I'm like, I'll do it. I'll just on my own time. Here's my pitch image, and he ended up he actually emailed me back and was like, oh, this I'm so flattered. I actually am working on something with somebody already, which I don't know if anything ever came of that. I haven't seen anything specific,
Right.
but like, yeah, man, like I love the idea of like expanding on someone's awesome indie game and like help like fleshing out characters and making a cool story that's like a companion to the game.
And
Yeah,
especially like some indie games kind of harken back to older 8-bit and 16-bit games where a lot of modern games the stories it's almost like a movie you're watching.
mm-hmm.
The older games and some indie games are more open-ended where like we're going to give you some of this and some of the visuals are kind of abstracted or pixelated. So it's kind of cool to have a comic book which will fleshen it out or at least show something a little different. It's like when I was a kid, part of the inspiration for Attaboy was the Legend of Zelda manual for the first
Yeah,
game was like a piece of art to me. It was amazing
totally.
artwork and storytelling. And the game itself, they're very small little pixels and they're kind of very different than the finished art. I was like, oh, that's supposed to be like a skeleton warrior, or what? This looks like nothing like that. But that's cool because as a kid, I just wanted like little inspiration sparks. I just needed the smallest thing. So indie games have a lot of that too. Like what's the one about Brandon or something? It's like the Binding of Isaac.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Binding of Isaac. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
stuff like that. And I love the fact that a lot of these indie games they're like one or two people
Yeah,
making it. That's awesome.
it's so awesome, and a lot of them are excellent, like super super fun. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to kickstart it or how to get it going, but I really think, especially I would say the indie game like on the economics side of things, I think they're like kind of cooking a little more than the indie comics. So it's like,
Yeah,
like
definitely.
just knock on that door and be like, "Hey, man, let's make some cash together."
Yeah,
Like,
I'll draw a 20-page thing about that Goose Game or whatever they want. Like it sounds
dude,
good.
that's what I'm saying. Like, there's a lot of inspiring, like, fun stuff you could do with that. And yeah, it feels like an untapped thing that needs to happen.
I think you're on something.
Yeah. Um, let's see. I'm looking over my notes. I complimented your psychedelic art. Let's see. I don't know. Where should we go from here? So let's talk inspirations a little bit. So Jeffrey Allen
Yeah.
Love is obviously a huge one. You said you had like maybe four people you could name. Like
Oh yeah,
who are who are the people you're pulling from? Kirby.
Kirby's definitely there, but I would say I know directly. Frank Miller's my first and probably still biggest inspiration in a lot of ways. Um, More modernish guys. I love Ashley Wood's art a lot. Um, I love Eric Larson. Eric Larson. I still read The Savage Dragon. And Eric Larson. What's funny is like I started with him and Spider-Man, him and McFarlane, and I followed to Image and Savage Dragon, and then he was my link into Kirby. and Walt Simonson, and he was like I could see his influences on the page, and I would like I knew who Kirby was and I respected Kirby, but it didn't really click for me yet.
Yeah.
And then eventually reading Eric Larson and then finally looking at some more Kirby, I was like, oh wait, I really like this. This is awesome. This is where the foreshortening, the big fists come from. This where all these dynamic things come from, and so he was my link into that. So I got Ashley Wood, Eric Larson, Frank Miller. And the fourth one, I mean, Jack Kirby is huge in there, but Mike Mignola, there's the fourth one would be a million guys, but there's
Yeah, yeah.
Mike Mignola,
But
there's John Romita Jr., but also like it's funny more and more. There's a lot of modern people who sneak in there, like Jim Mahfood. I think is a great style, and he also uses a parallel pen, and that was a big inspiration. um, I think Jesse Lonergan is probably the most exciting comic book artist currently working.
what's his name? I don't know that.
Jesse Lonergan. He was actually at IC3.
Oh no shit.
His book now is called Man's Best, but he was kind of got onto the scene with a book called Hedra from Image, and he's got really great actual illustrative style, but he also is a master of layouts and really inventive but playful panel layouts. He's a good guy. He's a great he's a great artist. I think if you try one of his books, especially Hedra or his Patreon has a book called Drome, which is I think his best work yet. But any of his stuff, he's worked with Mike Mignola. It's great, and he's actually from my area of Massachusetts, and like he did my wedding invitation, so I knew him for a
Oh
while.
wow.
But and what's really weird is he's a good friend of mine, but he's also a huge inspiration, and it's a
That's
weird
cool.
thing to have. It is cool. It's weird. It's strange, but he's great. There's so many freaking artists, but like
Yeah, yeah.
but the three I mentioned, and then you can insert Kirby or I'm missing somebody huge. It's killing me. I'm
Ah, it's
missing
all
somebody
good.
gigantic. But like, yeah,
They'll
I love
understand.
yeah, I hope so. If they're listening, why are you listening to this podcast? You're a legend. What do you do? But yeah, I'm always finding new artists and cool stuff. Like I just tabled at Heroes Con, and Heroes Con was excellent. It was probably the best show I've ever done. And part of that was seeing people who I've seen on Instagram, but finally seeing some of their comics. There's a guy
Oh,
named Jeremy Brooks, great kinetic style, real sketchy and weird, and he's great. He's got some awesome original books. He just did a little bootleg for Longshot and Mojo and the X-Men stuff. Looks awesome. I'm way into him now. There's a bunch of good people.
that's great. Um, I t- I'm guessing just because you keep mentioning the specific pen, then you do a lot of stuff paper and pen, like analog.
Yeah, 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 totally. Yeah. So basically, with my comics, it's all analog. The art, or sorry, the color is digital. But I
Mhm.
try to mimic watercolor and
Yeah.
crayon. But now I've been for the last couple of years actually doing watercolor on commissions and like just trying it out on actual art. And so I think I have a project in mind where I'm just going to try to do real watercolor on it. Oh, and real quick, back to my inspirations.
Hmm.
I missed like one of the biggest ones ever.
Hmm.
Michelle Fife, Copra. I'm a huge
Oh,
Copra guy. And Copra inspiration artistically, storytelling wise, but also he made his book independently. He sells it on Etsy. That was actually like 10 years ago when I was like gonna finally do comics. Reading Copra, it got me like I never stopped reading comics, but it just kind of reignited my passion for it. And I got to meet him, and I just told him, hey man, for better or for worse, you're my inspiration. Thank you. And he's really nice. He's really nice about it. But he's a great artist. He's still doing Copra. It's incredible work. It's probably my favorite thing that's still currently being created.
that's
If
cool.
anyone has not read Copra, it's dynamite. Michelle Fife Copra, check it out. He's got a huge, massive amount of work now too. And lastly, last inspiration, 'cause it dawned on me. Tom Scioli. I love Tom Scioli.
Oh,
Tom
yeah,
Scioli,
yeah.
his Transformers versus GI Joes is still one of my favorite comics I've ever read, and especially the last 10 years, it really just shattered my head. I thought it was great, and all his work is great. And he's done a great Stan Lee biography book and a great Jack Kirby biography book, and all his stuff is so cool. Like and also I was gonna say half these guys gave me blurbs for Attaboy, but that shouldn't. I do mean it. I love these guys' work.
No,
These guys are my dudes. Like they're incredible.
that's awesome. I'm just now, in my late 30s, diving into the superhero thing. Like, for whatever reason, I've I've been into comics since I was a little kid. My grandfather was a huge comic book collector, and he would let us read anything we want. And I always gravitated towards the Carl Barks, like Donald Duck and Uncle Scrooge stuff, just because I like
Awesome.
the them being funny and
Right.
the humor of it. But the other thing he had was the entire collection of Little Nemo and Slumberland, and I would always beg to read that. Like that's the one thing I like. He had literally anything. I could read anything I wanted, and I would always read Little Nemo and Slumberland. And like my brother got super into Spider-Man, and I you know, I read some Spider-Man, I read some Batman, and you know, like little kids being into superhero stuff. But I never
Right.
really dove in and until pretty recently, and I'm just now like doing the Frank Miller stuff. Like I started reading, I read his whole Daredevil run, which is like super entertaining. Just at as
Yeah.
like a pure entertainment level, like you just want to keep reading. It's very very good. It's like what every Netflix show is trying to do. Like they're trying to
Right.
like hook you and get you, and he just nails it. Funnily enough, the Daredevil show on Netflix was pretty good actually.
Right, right. The soap opera is you're like, oh my god, next issue, what's going to
Yeah.
happen? It's undeniable. Yeah.
He nailed it. And yeah, you mentioned reading The Dark Knight at such a young age. I'm like 2/3 of the way through it now, and I'm like, oh my
that's
god,
awesome.
dude, there's so much dark shit in that. When like this rando on the subway like puts a grenade into the woman's handbag. I was reading that and audibly went, oh, because it's so
Yeah,
fucked up.
it's funny too. 'Cause I'll reread it like probably once a year, and I always forget little bits like that. I'm like, oh my god, what is happening? And I get that it was like 1986, and he's just like, no, I'm gonna show you like your little play toys are fucking evil, and it's funny. Like I love it. It's very punk rock. But it's insane.
Yeah.
It almost shouldn't work at times, but I think it's great. But like you know, you mentioned like Carl Barks. Like, do you ever read Jeff Smith's Bone?
Yes, yes. That's the other.
Yeah,
My grandfather showed me Bone. Like, I was into the cartoony and kind of funny side of
Right.
things, not like so much that's realistic in action. But now I am getting into that, and it's really good. Like, I get it now.
No, and I like all that stuff. Like, there's a guy now, Lee Gatelin, who he's mostly a children's book author, but he actually just did a 10-page backup of an Amazing Spider-Man. But his style is really great. It looks almost like it's drawn in crayon. He did
That's
a
cool.
kid's book about Steve Ditko and a kid's book about Stan Lee, and he draws a great Thing and Fantastic Four. And I got to meet him a few times at the show and bought his like art books and stuff. He's awesome. And more when it comes to superhero stuff, unless somebody funky like that is drawing it, I don't really want to read it.
Yeah.
That's why I want somebody weird on it to make
I
it kind of more flavorful.
Totally. I'm reading all the old stuff. I like you say, like Jack Kirby for whatever reason didn't click off right off the bat. Now I'm like reading all the Fantastic Four and stuff, and it's like, yes,
Yeah.
like the design is just awesome. Specifically, the Thing, like it's so sad. It's like you want to draw the Thing after looking at a picture of the Thing. I don't know why, like what it is
Yeah.
about it, but it's pretty
I,
interesting.
I often will try to make a little list in my head, and Jack Kirby's got so many characters he created. I think with the best design, just visual. I'm like, the Thing might be the one. It's like so simple, but you have to do a certain way to get it right, and it's so satisfying. And the character of him comes across, like, especially you see him with a cigar, kind of like you're like, yeah, he's like your uncle, but he's a big rock dude. I don't know. It just kind of all fits.
Yeah. Speaking of, this is I'm glad this triggered a thought I was meaning to bring up. I'm loving your prints you're doing right now of the Batman, but it says the Amazing Spider-Man. There's something so charming to me of second language English, like countries like making like bootleg products that like
Yeah.
have the wrong names of the characters or the wrong colors of the outfit or whatever. I love that stuff. It'll never not be like entertaining to me, and you're
Oh,
doing
same.
something like
Thank
that.
you.
It's great.
Oh, Thanks. I feel the same way. I'll look up stuff online all the time, like bootleg foreign posters and stuff, and
Yeah.
it's great. Also, I love translated titles, like what they call Star Wars in like Turkey or whatever. I think it's great. But the Spider-Man Batman joke, I've been doing that joke as a sketch for years, and I think it started from like when I was in my early 20s. Actually, when I was 18, I worked at Blockbuster Video for like 7 years, and one of my favorite things to do was like there's a bunch of like kids from like Little League. They come in and I'm like, "How was soccer today, guys?" And they would just like hate lasers at me, like they like just couldn't stand me, and I just like, and so I debuted my Batman Spider-Man print at HeroesCon this just like a week ago, and it worked like a charm. Like all these little kids would stop their mom, like wait, and they try to correct me, and I'm like, no, no, I looked it up online, guys. This is how he looks. See, and
That's
I even
so
like
good.
I like do like see flip, and I do this and like thumbs up, and then it's like, and what sometimes they buy it, and sometimes they just like so upset, and that
That's
was
so
almost better than the money.
that's so funny, dude.
It felt good. It felt good.
Uh,
I I like to be the change I want to see in the world.
exactly. Yeah, you have a bunch of really good ones. If I'm recalling, I think you did a Doctor Doom that was like just
Yeah.
very satisfying to your style applied to those like iconic characters is pretty cool. I like it.
Th Thanks a lot. I've been discovering, especially with like Golden Age characters like Squeaky like the original Captain Marvel, Shazam. Drawing them, somebody like me drawing them is really fun because I'm kind of gnarly and I have really messy lines, and these are very clean cut characters, and they're also really almost all of them well designed, so
Hmm.
you can't really mess them up too much, and it looks a little cool. But it is kind of fun to see that, like, and also Doctor Doom, he might be like the number two best design. I love Doctor Doom, and
He is
lately I've been
cool as
drawing
hell
him
looking.
do yeah, I've been drawing him doing like diss track stuff. Like he's a rapper against Reed Richards. I drew this one picture of all the FF villains, and it said "We need girlfriends." I felt really good about that one. I sold the original actually at HeroesCon, and I almost feel like oh, I should have kept that. It was really fun. Because all those dudes, it's like, oh, they're like your weird friend who like you knew in high school. You haven't had a date in 20 years. Like you just need a woman that set you straight. Honestly,
That's so funny. Yeah, man. Like you were saying, for modern superhero comics, you kind of need a kind of a cool look to get you on board. I because I was diving into the old stuff, I was like, oh, maybe I should give the modern stuff a try. And like Marvel's doing all that ultimate stuff now. That's all like
right?
fresh, like you can jump in or whatever. I've already like checked out a Spider-Man. Even I mean, it's fine. I was sort of into it, but like the speed of the storytelling is like you get one scene essentially, and I'm like,
Right.
that's insane. Like that's how is that, like, is that a standard in the industry now? Like what the
It kind
fuck
of,
is that?
I think it kind of is. It's funny. One of the things I really liked about Kirby when I actually finally read his stuff is they're so dense and full of ideas, and he still finds a way to have awesome big panels and pictures. But there's like no, you feel like you got a full episode there. There's a lot of stuff happened and a lot of things changed,
Yeah,
and even my own comics, I try to make them kind of dense. Especially like I have a series called Serious Creatures, and there's 12 issues and it's done now. But each issue is probably a 2 month wait, and so I was like, I want you to feel like you got a full meal. Like it's
totally,
not like because yeah, a lot of these modern superhero books. I'll wait for the trade, and when I read the trade, I'm like, this feels like this would be 2 issues back in the day.
dude.
They made 6 issues out of it.
It's insane. Like, maybe I don't know what the thinking is, but like even in those old ones, like you kind of fill in like more stuff. You know what I mean? Like there's so much happening, but it kind of your kind of brain like fills in the in between scenes. You know what I'm saying?
Right? Yeah.
And it feels very satisfying because you're getting, like you say, you're getting like a full like you know rising action, lowering action like story that's interesting. And I the last Spider-Man, that Ultimate Spider-Man I read, it's just a conversation over like a glass of wine. It literally is like this is a Netflix show that I'm watching one scene at a time that is just okay. I don't need to spend my money on this. Like this isn't weird.
I agree with all that. I'll even expand it. I feel like in general, in like movies, TV, comics, pacing is off.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's movies are way too long, and they don't
Mm-hmm.
need to be long. Shows have padding. There's episodes in the middle. I'm like, what, this should have been like this 5 episodes. What are we doing? And then
Yeah.
comics, I don't know what happened. I don't. I feel like
I
we,
I don't
yeah,
either. Like there's like I mean, I'm not trying to be an asshole. Like writing is excruciatingly hard. Like writing a genuinely entertaining good story that like works all the way through. It's probably one of the hardest things you can do as like a creative person.
right.
But it does seem like a lot more people used to be able to do it well, and like something is happening where the basics are getting lost for something else that isn't really telling a story. It's very weird to me.
Yeah, and it's funny, like some formulas they make sense, but like I'm not even a formula guy. But what I am is like, would I be satisfied with this chunk of story if this is
Mm-hmm.
it? And that's why I base things on it. And I can't imagine most people will be satisfied with some of these things. It is kind of weird. I'm not sure what happened. I'm not sure if we could right the ship or what. But
I think what started clicking for me is for whatever reason, for the longest time, I thought pulp novel meant shitty novel because like
right,
it's cheap or whatever. But
right,
then I was like, I want to read these old pulp novels, and no, it means it's like action. Like it means it's
right.
not trying to be art, but the stories are like so solid and entertaining. Like everyone needs to just read like 100 pulps by like Robert E. Howard or any of those other dudes. Like the Dashiell Hammett, like
Right.
just hardcore entertainment. Like you can't put it down until you get to the end because it's engaging. Like we just yeah, there needs to be like some kind of renaissance of like the pulp mindset of like no flowery bullshit. We're just trying to make a really good story.
I think we need like a industry like what do you call it when someone's like an alcoholic and an
Yeah,
intervention? We need like an
intervention.
intervention. Sit down like all these like famous writers like listen, we love you, but
Yeah, there's something off for sure. I'm gonna keep checking out the Peach Momoko X-Men thing just because her art's beautiful and
yeah, I
and
do.
and entertaining. Like it's still
Right.
moving. It does move slowly, but it feels like there's at least like 5 scenes instead of one. Literally one scene in that
Yeah.
last Spider-Man I read.
No, I like her stuff. I got into was it Darker Demon Days? Demon Days was the first one I think I read, and I went
Yeah,
back. Yeah, I love like the Japanese folklore versions of existing characters. That's
yeah,
always
it's
fun.
cool.
But yeah, I I'm a sucker for awesome art too. But she isn't an abuser like some other people. And it's funny in indie comics and even like I guess indie comics which are like image comics which are popular, not like true indie comics.
Hmm.
Like you ever read Headlopper?
Yeah,
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 Headlopper. I think he gets it. Like his issues are big too. He'll have like they're quarterly, so they're like
yeah.
40 to 50 pages. But Andrew McLean, I'll read that and go, hell yeah, that was a big chunk. I feel good.
I need to go back to Headlopper because I think I read it at a time where I was like butthurt that I wasn't making comics, and I was like, why this one? Like that kind of a mind space. I
Right,
do
right.
very much like the art, and but I've only read one, to be honest. I should go back and check it out because there's obviously something to it.
He also did a book maybe a year ago called Snarlagon, which he did on Kickstarter.
That looked cool
That
as hell.
that ruled. Like me and my 4-year-old daughter love it. That's her like kaiju. That's like, more popular than Godzilla to her mind.
That's
It's
great.
awesome. It's really funny, and he did a great job on that. I think.
That's cool. I do love his art. Yeah, like I said though, I was like, this is when I was like really desperately wanting to make something, and like, I'm thinking just like like ego protection, jealousy of like, you know what I mean? Like,
No, we all get that. So I'll know I've arrived if someone else confesses to me, like, yeah, man, I used to hate you and I used to do these terrible reviews. But eventually I realized, that's the one. Like, yeah, I did it.
hell yeah, converted the haters. Um, yeah, I well actually was really interested in that Snarlagon just because kaiju are cool as hell. I've been
Yeah.
going down this YouTube rabbit hole of art. My friend's like super into art toys, and I was like, I guess it's kind of cool. but it didn't really grab me. And then I went down this Japanese safubi. It's like the soft vinyl toys, and a lot of them are kaijus, and like the new basically indie toy creators are creating like super hyper detailed vinyl toys, and they look just incredible, and they paint them with like hot rod car paint and shit.
Yeah,
it's very very cool. Yeah, it's definitely worth looking into. And now I said to my friend, okay, I get it now. Like, I understand why this is cool as hell.
Right.
And
are they crazy? Are they crazy expensive or like?
Not like. Well, it's like the going price that looks like they'll make like 50 variations. They're all like small batch. But I think like the highest like prices I were seeing from like really cool and popular creators was like $120, which. Okay. It's a chunk of change, but like if it's something that you just think looks awesome and you just want it on your shelf,
right?
But yeah, it's enough that you'd have to really want one, you know.
At the very least, I can window shop online and
exactly.
Yeah.
I'll send you after we're done. I'll send you an Instagram account I just followed. I think you'll get where I'm coming from once you see this stuff.
Totally.
Dude, it's it's pretty cool. My friends there, they make their own toys. They were at the convention. They were selling their toys in a bubblegum machine, it was
sweet.
Yeah, it's every time I table with him, it's like people rush over to see this like toy machine, because obviously that's just like a cool novelty. Right. And I'm like, please now look at my comic book. But
it's tough when you're next to somebody who's really interesting and cool. It can either help you or can totally hurt you. And I honestly don't know what happens or why.
I haven't done enough shows yet to know to figure that one out. But like, it's definitely inspired me to like want to make a toy as like a companion to. I just love the idea of like having a cool like print, like 3 issues of a comic book. Like 3 different issues of a comic series, and like a toy that you've designed, like kind of like a cool assortment of things that are just like attractive to look at. I'm like fantasizing about how I'm gonna build out my table for future
make your empire, man. Do it.
Yeah, totally. Is there anything we haven't gotten to that you'd like to hit before we wrap up?
I'll say like if anyone has read Attaboy or wants to read Attaboy and you dig it, I do have other books. I have a book called Serious Creatures that it's 12 issues and it's done. The first trade's already collected. I'm going to do a Kickstarter next month for the second trade, which is issue 7 through 12. It's about the history of special effects in Hollywood, and it's about the rise and fall of like monster movies, and it's almost like Boogie Nights but about special effects guys in the 70s.
That's awesome.
It's pretty fun, and people dig it, and I think it's my best work. But also I have like a book called Lumen, which is an action adventure book, which is pretty fun. And it's sold out, but I did a Friday the 13th bootleg book, and people really dig that. And if you go online, you can find it for free, and I think it's pretty cool.
That's awesome, dude. I'm excited to check out your other stuff. Like that, like I said, this is the first thing in years I've dove into that, you know, wasn't like you said, window shopping on Instagram or whatever.
Right.
But it's super fun. You're a talented guy, and I dig your style, dude.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Let's it's getting a little late over here. I'm a sleepy boy. Let's send people where's the best place to pick up your work? Like what site? Or do you care?
So basically what's cool is like Attaboy is available in stores, but you can ask your shop to order it. And if not, you can go on Amazon, you can go on Barnes and Nobles, and you can actually go to Mad Cave Studios and you can order it there. You can also go to Etsy and find my name. I have the original edition of it for sale still. But the coolness is it's out everywhere, so it actually is like it's like a real book almost.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
Your journey has grown from not thinking you're worthy of making a comic book to having a comic book for sale in every conceivable place on the internet.
It kind of worked out. It's pretty neat. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, this was great talking to you, dude. Let's catch up again in the future.
Sounds good,
man.
Thanks,
sounds like I'll be seeing you at the next IC3, baby.
That's right, dude. I'll be there.
Awesome. Thanks for hanging out.
Thanks, man.